What if the way you teach and care for young children could change the world? Welcome to Reimagine Childhood, brought to you by the Early Childhood Christian Network, helping you grow as an educator, leader, and follower of Jesus. Early childhood is a sacred season where hearts are shaped, faith begins to grow, and lifelong learning takes root. We believe teaching young children is more than a job, it's a calling. That's why each episode is filled with practical strategies, real stories, and faith-based encouragement to help you create joyful, meaningful learning experiences in your classroom and beyond. Let's reimagine what's possible in early childhood together. I'm your host, Monica Healer, and I'm so glad you're here. I get to introduce you to another author today. Tara Hackney loves Jesus and the little children of the world, from villages in Nigeria and Zambia to orphanages in Romania and India. She has held and prayed over babies, told Bible stories through translators, and danced to songs with silly motions, all with the hope of pointing little souls to the one who created them. Tara is the founder of JesusLoves.org, a ministry of encouragement dedicated to recapturing the wonder, exploring the depth, and spreading the good news of the world's greatest love. You will hear her passion in today's episode. She wants children to know that they are loved by a great big God who looks on them with delight. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, you may notice that we are recording from two different locations today. Don't worry, I'm back in my home office now, but recorded her episode offsite. So if you notice something different on YouTube, that's what's going on. Let me introduce you to Tara now. Tara, welcome to the podcast today. I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, Monica. I really appreciate it.
So we get to talk today about a book that you have written, really a song that you have rewritten and then put
hmm
into a book. And this is a song that I think many of us, if we grew up in a Christian church, we probably heard the song, which is Jesus Loves the Little Children. A
That's it.
song that in so many ways is, I think, special to a lot of us. But you felt a need to rewrite that. So talk to me a little bit about what led you to this project in the first place, and then why rewrite a song and a book?
Rewriting this song actually came from kind of a deep well of actual mama love.
Mm.
I had three biological sons, and I grew up, with them singing this song some. This Jesus Loves Little Children is actually the second most famous Christian children's song in the world. It's just crossed
Wow.
all kinds of cultural boundaries. It's been played all over the world. It was written in the 1800s, and it's become very well known. And I didn't think much about it, but when we adopted our little girl from India, I came home and she was only 2 years old and she was extremely traumatized. She had had a really rough situation in India. She was malnourished. She had had just some really bad situations in her life already. And of course, she didn't understand English and she
Of
was
course.
not bonded to us yet. And so the only way I could really comfort her was through singing to her. And
Wow.
so I remember, she just cried and cried, and I would just rock and sing, and I would sing every song I could think of. But when I got to Jesus Loves the Little Children of the World, and I got to red and yellow, black and white, I stopped because I just realized there was no brown. And I thought, she's not included in this song. And
Oh,
then I really started just thinking about red and yellow is super, somewhere on the spectrum between cringy and outdated. Like, this is just not
right.
something that would be said, of course, nowadays. And so I just
Yeah.
thought in that moment, like, this song just needs a redo or maybe
Yeah.
just a little tweaking, because the heart of the song is true. God does love the children of the world. And the writer back in the 1800s was trying to include
Right.
everybody. They were trying to
Right.
do the same thing we're kind of trying to do now, but it was just a different time and it was a different era. And so I feel like just some words just came into my mind. And the first stanza, of just every color, every shade, just exactly as he made. And I just thought this has to include everybody. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's how it got started.
Yeah, I love that. But I think what it's done in you is it's created, and maybe just awakened is a better term. It's awakened a passion in you about really communicating to all
Hmm.
children that they are made in God's image, that God has a grand design in
Hmm.
humanity, and we're not all the same, that there is purpose in our differences as much as there's purpose in our sameness as a human race, right? There's a
Sure.
sameness in humanity that is God's design, but God didn't make us all look the same, act the same, sound
Hmm.
the same, put us in the same place. And there's a beauty in that. So talk a little bit about the different ways that you're doing that, that you're really focusing on God's grand design in humanity
Hmm.
in these different, in the different, just in the different stanzas that you've created. We won't go through each one, but just, and we will probably go through each one,
Yeah,
but
we could
um,
go.
talk, just talk through that a little bit. Like, what is it
Sure.
about, like, what made you pick these
These
descriptors?
specific words.
Yeah,
Well, it was actually I mean, when I adopted her, it was a huge life shift for me too. And it
I'm sure.
really was an awakening, kind of, I think you used that word, of how our differences really point to the glory of God. Like a
Mm,
very small God would make us all the same.
yep.
And there would be one type of tree and one type of flower, and one type of human. But a very great God would make us all so different because it just is sort of reflects his majesty. And so I really started enjoying that more as I got to know my daughter. And we actually had a few years later adopted another little girl from India. And, being able to travel there and see them and their different, just how different the culture was, but how it still pointed to God.
Mm,
And so I really started, reflecting a lot on diversity being a part of God's grand design. Like he made us different because it gives him glory. And so over the years, I've actually started doing some speaking with children, and I've really come to believe and love to share with children and adults that we are all purposefully made,
mm.
we are all personally known, and we are all perfectly loved by Jesus. And this song is just a seed that I'm hoping can be planted in little tiny souls to believe that you are made and loved so perfectly. That's one of the lines in the song.
Yeah.
That means you and that means me, made and loved so perfectly.
Yeah.
And then it goes on everyone from here to there, down and up and everywhere. And the whole idea with that is just that God's love is so much bigger than us. And Ephesians, it talks about his love is high and wide and long and deep, and that fills up the whole earth. And so there's just this beauty that when you start seeing other people as not just different than me, I don't really like that, but as part of this grand design created on purpose and for a purpose by a creator who has a big plan. I mean, imagine us just this huge, landscape of beauty. And part of that is that he chose for that person to be in that landscape. And that person has value and worth. And who am I to think my little part of the painting is more important than your part of the painting? And so it kind of really breaks down a lot of, I think, abilities almost to even look at different races or different people and say, why, they're less than me because they're not like me. It's foolishness when you really think about how God is making this design and that he has this ultimate, he's the artisan and he's making this beautiful tapestry. And that person, for in his opinion, is here because he has a purpose for them, a plan for them.
I love what you're saying right now. And that really is, it's the three things you said, right? That everyone is purposefully made. Say it
Mhm.
again. Perfectly loved by Jesus was the last thing. What's the middle thing?
Purposefully made,
Personally known.
personally known. And I get a lot of the purposefully made and personally known. I love Psalm 139 is
Mm,
one of my favorite passages to really, where I really spend a lot of time soaking up those ideas, is that it says in Psalm 139:1, Lord, you search me and you know me. You know me. And it says later in the passage that he knits us together in our mother's womb, that we are
mm,
fearfully and wonderfully made, and
yeah.
that he has thoughts of us that outnumber the grains of sand. And so just the idea that if he in his majesty, would want to make me and know me and that he designed me. It says, I love it. There's a section there that says he knitted me together in the secret place. And
Oh,
I just love that imagery of just picturing each other made, in his little secret place that he's, has this grand idea and that the grand idea is you and,
yeah.
and me and the children that you work with. And there's that little song. I was actually listening to it this morning and thinking about this recording coming up. That little, I am a masterpiece created by God. Do you know that one?
Yeah, yeah,
It's such a great image of what I'm really saying.
yeah,
Um, is that, if you are a masterpiece, but so is the person across from you, then you
yeah,
can just love them and give glory to God for them and not just,
yeah.
be unhappy about that. They're not just like you.
So I feel like we're kind of going here, but give us some practical ways that we can shift our mindset maybe
Hmm.
and interact with children in with this mindset that
Yeah.
all of them are created as a masterpiece. And we're talking, I mean, in the book, I love that in the book you have pictures of so many different races and abilities. It's not just our
Hmm.
ethnicities or our race that matters in how God's created us differently, but you actually have children with varying, there's a child with Down syndrome in one of the pictures, there's a child in a wheelchair in a picture, there's a child with no hair in a picture.
Right. Right.
All the different abilities and all our different circumstances, I think all is part of how God has perfectly made us,
Right.
personally made us, right? So even in different circumstances, different abilities, different boundaries, all those places,
Hmm.
how can we practically interact with children with that mindset that the Lord has created each one of us specifically for where we are today?
Well, I think one of the things I think that was going to be helpful when you look at a child, both of my girls actually have some special needs. And so I've been able to just see, that you would think, why would God make a child, that has special needs?
Yeah.
But there's so much beauty woven into a person being cared for and caring for someone. I have a daughter who was born with cleft lip and cleft palate,
Mhm.
and she has moderate hearing loss. But I think, so she spent a lot of time in the hospital. We've had lots of surgeries, but she has seen such care and compassion that she now, in turn, is the most compassionate, caring little girl I've ever known. She will, if you are feeling at all down, she'll be like, Mommy, you just need to go take a rest. I'll just cut the
I
banana
love
for you or
that.
something. Like, she just
Yeah.
wants to love it. So the world is full of so much more love because she's in it and she's going to be helping people, in the future. But I don't think she would be as compassionate had she not been born, with that
Oh,
situation. She
sure.
would not have been adopted necessarily if she had not been in that situation. Americans are not allowed to adopt Indians that are healthy. They have to have some kind of issue.
Mhm.
And so God's plan for her was to, live in America, to learn about him, to whatever she's going to go on to do. And
Right.
so he knew when he was knitting her together, this is going to help fulfill my ultimate vision for her. That's just one example of maybe why. We aren't going to know why for
Right.
sure. But I think the first step when we're dealing with little children is just recognizing that the 3-year-old who's having a hard time sharing or the 4-year-old who's asking questions incessantly
Mhm.
is just a little soul who is made in the image of God and he is a bearer of God's image. And there's something you can learn from that child. They have some peace that
Yeah.
you don't have. So I
Yeah.
think just that awareness of them being an image bearer is probably the first step. And classrooms can quickly, I think, become holy ground when we
Mhm.
start treating each other with the dignity and respect that an image bearer of God would deserve. But I think just some little practical ways like getting down on their level,
Yeah.
just to speak to them
Yeah.
face, eye contact, using calm, respectful tones. I think teaching children to show respect to each other and using this kind of language of this person's made in God's image. They're very special. Like we need to treat them with, just kind of using the language of that in your discipline. And even just kind of digging into like, what does it mean to be created in the image of God? Like, what separates us from, because we're all created like animals, trees,
Yeah.
plants, like we're created like those other
Sure.
parts of God's creation, but we're distinct because we're created in the image of God. So, where are those distinctions? I think one of them is creativity. We have the ability to create because we are created and we are image of
We're,
the creator.
oh, I love that.
And so to just really offer open-ended art projects that aren't just preset crafts, like see what they come up with because they're image bearers.
Yeah.
Like they could come up with something really cool or
Oh, wow.
encouraging imaginative play.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, other things is justice. Kids have a sense of justice built in because they're created in the image of God. So
Wow.
when it's not fair, and that's annoying because they're like, that's not fair, da, 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 it's something in them that's reacting to
Mm,
their sense of justice that is in them because they're made in God's image, which is different than like a cow. They're not they're not going to know that's
right.
not fair. So I
Right.
think just sort of seeing some of these qualities kids have that can kind of feel frustrating maybe sometimes or annoying, if you kind of reframe your thinking about it, is actually quite interesting and sort of beautiful reasoning is and sound judgment. Having a child, like sometimes you'll see the kid not want to share and
Right.
then they'll make the decision kind of to share. They've reasoned that
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
They learned
Yeah.
from the prior experience. Okay, the right thing to do is I am going to share. Now that
Yeah.
obviously doesn't happen, but the whole point of us giving these disciplines and boundary stuff is because we know they can change because they have sound judgment and reasoning. This is all because they're image bearers.
I love that mindset shift that if we would step back and look at children's behavior and their mannerisms and all those things as a part of God's design of who they were always meant
Mm-hmm.
to be, we probably would spend a lot less time trying to make them form.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, there is a part of classroom management, right? That is,
Sure.
hey, we've got to have some rules and boundaries and consequences and all that. And that's real and true, and that is necessary. And also, sometimes I think we can be so rigid in how we want to run our
Mm-hmm.
classroom. We don't allow much space for that creative play or
Right.
so focused on getting the craft just right because, we're giving it to mama for Mother's Day or
Right.
whatever. So it's got to be just perfect that we forgo a child's creativity in favor of, hey, this is what I need this to look like so that I look like a good teacher. Instead of, hey, no, this is actually how your child sees you as a mom or dad,
Right.
or this is how a child imagines all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, we're very focused on what we want that to look like. And so,
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I've done it myself. So I'm
Oh,
saying this with a big smile on my face with specific memories in my mind. Just let me put that there because you're not doing it the way I want.
right. Like I can
Um,
make this so much better.
well, sure, in my mind, but not,
Right.
I mean, that's me using my imagination, right? And
Exactly.
not trusting
That's
them
right. Because
to have
you want
their
to
own
use your
great idea.
creativity too.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
laughing
my word.
because as a parent, I actually have a specific memory of my first son being 3 years old and him
Yeah.
getting a gingerbread man craft assignment from
Yeah.
his preschool teacher. And it was just, take this home and decorate it and bring it back. We're going to hang them all on the wall. My husband and I were like, this has got to look good.
Three buttons. We got matching from.
We went and bought cards from Walmart or those that had lights. Had
Oh,
lights all around it. It played music. It was off the chain. I mean, glitter everywhere. It was perfect. And we set it with him, turn in. And the teacher called us and she was like, the idea was that you let your son do this. I can tell.
I
I
don't
don't think
think
he
this
even
was
touched
a
this.
year-old work. I think this was a parent's work.
Exactly. So it's funny. I think parents feel that too, of just wanting it to kind of we usurp that like we don't know what he would have come up with. We missed our chance.
Yeah.
So
Luckily, God gives us a lot of opportunities for
that's
do-over.
right.
I mean, it's the part of early childhood that I love. Like, even when we're talking about helping children learn like social norms and things like that, right? We don't just grab stuff, right? That's a skill that they have to learn. We don't just grab a toy from someone. We learn how to use the right words to say, can I?
Right.
God gives us so many opportunities to practice that as adults in teaching children and also in children
Sure.
learning the skills, right? Praise God that, first of all, He's very patient with me and gives me a lot of do-overs to learn those kinds of skills. But as a teacher, I would just say sometimes we can get very frustrated that we're having to do this again. I'm having to teach
Right.
again. Or we can get on that guilt trip of like, oh, I totally lost my cool that time and I did not do that well. Like you with your
Yes.
glittery light musical
Right.
gingerbread.
Yes.
And the good news is, in early childhood, we get so many opportunities to keep practicing because they still need to practice those skills. So we get
We-
opportunities to do it over.
Well, you're bringing up a really good point too, going back to the image of God, is that kids are so forgiving. I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like every morning they wake up and they're like completely happy with you again, even if you lost your cool.
Yeah.
And I've not really ever processed this completely, but isn't that a great reflection of the image of God?
Wow.
That they're willing every morning to like, your mercies are new every morning. I feel like sometimes with my kids, like their mercies are new every morning. Like if I lose it,
I
they're
mean,
still
that's
so
right.
happy to see me and love me, And isn't that how we're supposed to be?
That is truly the image of God being
Yeah.
shown to us through the beauty of young children.
Yeah.
And that's, I think often if we as adult, like we think we have to teach them. And the reality
Right.
is God has put us in charge of stewarding their growing up. But at the same time, if we pause long enough, a lot of what they are teaching us, powerful lessons of how God has actually created us. When we look at their innocence and just how they, I mean, it's a perfect example is what you just said. They wake up totally happy with you. They don't remember that you were upset at them.
They're not.
No.
And it's interesting too, the Bible goes out of its way to say, have faith like a child.
Mm, there's a
I think you're really on it. There's a lot we can learn from them because I think it's hard. I mean, life's hard. We get jaded down here. It's a lot, but they haven't gotten hard yet. And so I think we get a little bit and probably even a more pure sense of the image of God in them sometimes because there's been less sin to corrupt it. There's been less hardship of living, in the middle land of good and evil. We're not just in all good or evil yet.
we're in the
Always dealing with both. And they're still kind of probably closer to heaven than we were, right? So I think it's just such a cool frame to think about rearing children and teaching little children of their made in that secret place. How cool is that?
Okay, quick story before we jump back into this episode. Picture this. It's summer in Texas. It's warm outside. The parking lot is filling up. The doors open. You've got your favorite iced coffee or water bottle in your hand. There's laughter in the hallways. Name tags are going on. Hugs between teachers who haven't seen each other since May. There's a buzz of energy and excitement, a room full of early educators who love Jesus and love children, ready to embark on another journey of growth. That's what our annual 2-day conferences feel like. For 2 whole days, Tuesday and Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. Tuesday and Wednesday this year. July 14th and 15th in Georgetown, Texas, or August 4th and 5th in McKinney, Texas. We gather together to learn, to laugh, to worship, and refuel. You might walk into a breakout session led by a dynamic presenter equipping first-year teachers with classroom confidence. Down the hall, there's a seasoned director soaking up fresh leadership insight. Every age group, every role, birth through kindergarten, there's something here for you. And this year's keynotes, oh, I am so excited about them. We'll kick off Tuesday morning with Dr. Melissa Ewing, helping us understand how to truly set children up for success through the lens of brain research. Tuesday afternoon, Debbie Simmons, a true legacy architect, will challenge us to think long-term about the impact we're building every single day. Wednesday morning, Joy Wendling from Created to Play will remind us that play isn't just for children. We'll explore how God wired each one of us uniquely and how we connect with Him through our own play personalities. And we'll wrap up our time together with a hilarious sketch comedy duo, the Skitsy Chicks, who will have you laughing all the way to your car because early childhood is eternally important, but we don't have to be so serious all the time. Registration opens April 1st and stays open until about a week before each event. So let me ask you, where will you join us this conference season? Head over to earlychildhoodchristiannetwork.com to see all the details and save your seat today. Okay, now let's jump back into this episode. So talk to me for a minute about how we can really communicate the love of God to young children in a way that they really grasp it, you know? I mean, I don't know that I've fully grasped it, so that's a big question
Well,
personally.
I think that is hard because I believe every human heart longs to be loved. I think
Yeah.
we're set to long for love. And I think the reason that is we're set to long for love because we're set to long for God, and God is love. So I
Wow.
think so much of what we're doing here on the earth in between is God is drawing us to himself. I think that he wants us to choose him. He wants us to follow him. And so I think he puts that setting like seek
Yeah.
love, knowing that he is love, and that ultimately you'll be fulfilled in that. But I do think love is more, for young children, at least, like embodied than taught. Like I think their needs are being cared for, and tone says so much more sometimes than our words. Like, how am I being treated? How do my teachers treat me? How do my parents treat me? How do my friends teach me? Like, they're discerning, like, what is love? Like, what does love look like? And so as Christian parents and teachers, we have such an honor to kind of show them as best we can, not perfectly, but love looks like God. And so we're going to try to have the fruits of the Spirit and exhibit those. But I think what happens a lot of times is we don't make the connection for them. We don't say, the reason I forgave you for doing that, even though it was ugly to mommy or your teacher, is because God's forgiven me. To draw those little
Connect the dots.
lines to help them connect the dot. The reason we want you to be kind is because God tells us in his word, be kind to one another, like to make the little Bible connection for them, or the little,
Yeah.
godly connection. And so I do think it's embodied first, but then there is like a knowledge transfer. Like I do think we demonstrate our love, but then we also have to use words sometimes to kind of, like you just said, connect the dot for them. Like, this
Yeah.
is love. We could talk about that with other qualities too. Like, this is grace. You deserve this punishment that we had talked about you were going to get, but this time we're going to give you grace, and that's what grace, to kind of talk it
Yeah.
through with them. So I think just those two things are what come to mind for
Yeah.
that age, I guess, at least.
I think that's great. I think let's zoom out slightly and say, how
Mhm.
can we really recognize and honor God's design, not just in the children in our classroom, but maybe in their families and even in our coworkers in a school?
Well, I think you're sort of saying like zoom out to seeing people that are outside of just your. Can you
Yeah,
repeat the question a little bit? Sorry.
like outside of just the children in your classroom. Like I think we can love the kids in our classroom. We can recognize that they are made in the image of God. How do we practically though honor different cultures, different I mean, I think a lot of times what we want is for everybody to be like us. So
Hmm.
I want things to be easier in my classroom, and so it's easier if all our customs are the same. It's
Sure.
easier if we all go to bed at 8 and wake up at 7 and get to school at 9,
Right.
you know?
Right. I
And
got you.
that's not the case in every culture. That's not the case. Actually, in a lot of cultures, that's not the case. And I mean, even as Americans, I feel like we also do this, like we are teaching independence really early.
Yeah.
We're not India is a
Yeah.
prime example. Like they are not a culture that is very like they are not teaching their children independence very early. The way
Right.
they show love a lot to their children is like by hand feeding them until they're much, much older than what we do. Like
Right.
we're like throwing Cheerios on a tray and saying, "Here, baby."
Exactly.
And that's not the case, right?
Right.
So I think we have to step back and recognize this is an act of love for that culture
Yeah.
rather than they're doing that and it's annoying me in the classroom.
Well, I think that is such a great question because it covers a lot of the ground. But I think just exposing kids to things that are different is a
Yeah.
huge part of it. Like having a bulletin board that's like created with a purpose or created on purpose, and having
Yeah.
kids, with all different lifestyles, on it. Or, of course, having, maybe cultural immersion day, like let's study Mexico or let's study Germany or let's study China or whatever, and have, just like a little lesson on what's it like there. I think sometimes people do it with different holidays,
Yeah.
but I think kids, the sooner I think they're able to say, this is the way we do it is a way, but
Mm.
not the only way or the right way,
Yeah.
it is going to cause them to probably a lot less chance they're going to be racist or sexist or all the ist, like if
Yeah,
you're able
sure.
just to deeply get in your mind, like we really are all created by someone higher than us because
Yeah.
it gives him glory and him beauty, then it really does even the playing field
Mm.
so quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but it makes it interesting. I think it really makes God so much more interesting when you think about, the jungles of Africa or, a kid, a child. One thing we did one time when my kids were little, which was so fun, is like have like empathy projects. So we basically had a half-mile walk to like a waterway, we live near the intercoastal waterway. And so we had been studying about how kids in some cultures have every morning go walk to get water.
Yeah.
And so we got buckets and
I love it.
walked down to the waterway and got some water, fill it with their buckets, and then
Uh-huh.
walk back to the house. It was hilarious. We had some friends over at the time too, but to see them, just these little kids like trying to figure out like what this is about. They were dumping water out, trying to make their bucket lighter. Some
Yeah.
of the kids were like trying to like share, hold it, I'll help you hold your bucket. But it was this kind of empathy idea of what it would be like to live in another culture. And then we were able to have this great conversation about clean water, and we talked about like, just this is a concern. Let's pray for kids who don't have clean water. And
Right.
so it really was this moment of just where we just kind of had to made an intentional decision as a family, like we're going to do something today, and this would be great for the classroom too,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we talk about an issue that's going on around the world and expose these kids in a way that's very practical and they
Sure.
feel it.
Yep.
But it was great. I mean, they were more engaged in that than, we're always just taking our kids to sports or scouts or whatever it is. But
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
stood out to them in kind of a cool, unique way. So I think cultural immersion ideas, most towns have different churches. There might be like the
Mhm.
Hispanic speaking church, the African American church. There's different
Yeah.
congregations. Sometimes like our town has a Korean church, a
Right.
Greek church, where
Yeah.
predominantly people are drawn, they want to hang out with people in their ethnicity, but they're very welcoming to people coming in from other ethnicities who want to learn. And so we would do church showcase and take our boys around town to these different churches and try to learn from these other
Yeah.
cultures. And it was neat because every single time we would have lunch afterwards and talk about it, and they always learned something about God from
Mhm.
watching other people worship that was impossible, I think, for them to learn if we just always went to our exact congregation
Yeah.
and never branched out. In some cultures, some
Yeah.
churches are great about having a really diverse crowd, but that's not
Yeah.
always the case.
Right.
So I do think sometimes as teachers and parents, you have to be a little intentional. But I
Yeah.
do think there's something magical that happens when kids see, like, oh, that's a different way of doing it. And it's not weird, it's cool,
Yeah.
you
But
know?
I think anything that we can do to bring experiences to kids rather than just words. I think
Exactly.
we as adults, we are great at telling stories and even reading books, which I mean, I love your book. So I'm hear me not dogging a book. But at the same time, I think when we can bring experience to those
Mhm.
stories, to yes, let's walk a little ways and go carry some water and see what that's like.
Yeah.
Let's taste some food that maybe we read about in a book or that's
Yes.
part of this unit. And I mean, I love the idea of bringing in the families that are in your school or in your church for that matter. Like, let's learn about their cultures. Let's
Yeah.
learn about
Absolutely.
the foods that are common for them. Let's learn about customs, festivals, different things that they celebrate that maybe we don't celebrate the same way, which is why, I mean, I loved learning how people celebrate Christmas around the world and all that.
Yes.
And not like, let's not get so wrapped up in those are non-Christian ways to celebrate. Because I do think
Right.
Christmas is a prime example. It's easy for us, hopefully, in a Christian school to say, hey, we celebrate Jesus. And you should. We definitely
Right.
should be celebrating the birth of
Yeah.
Jesus. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about, oh, well, how do they celebrate Christmas in Mexico? How do they celebrate Christmas in China?
Sure.
Celebrate Christmas in China. Like, let's talk about that and bring in some of those various festivals, customs as
Well, I
they
think as long as we're pointing it back to God, like, because I think we're always saying, these these differences reflect how big God is. Like, like I
yeah,
said at the beginning, a small God, there'd just be one way to do church and Christmas but it's just so much because of people are creative, because they're made in his image. They've created these
yeah,
beautiful festivals and paper flowers, or, people have such different things
yeah,
they'll do. Like some people make paper chains for Thanksgiving and other people do a tree, and put their thankful. But
yeah,
what did God put in these people's minds all over the world to do? And there's usually just like something exciting about seeing like, oh, they have different colors than we use, or they do it with lights and we, don't do that. I remember one time learning about a Moravian custom is that every year at Christmas, they turn off all the lights in the house, except they just light a few candles on the table, like the kitchen table, and then they sing Christmas carols as a family.
oh,
But the point you make is that light is coming to the world. That the key is
wow,
being in that darkness and then seeing the
yeah,
light. And then Jesus is the light of the world, and he's coming, for Christmas. But I remember learning about that at one of our church showcases.
yeah,
But being fascinated by that. And now we do that in our family because I would never have thought of that.
right,
But I got
right.
exposed to it and someone else did. And I was able to do that with my kids. And it was kind of quirky and no one else did it. But I was willing to say, what do other people, and what have you learned? What are you doing that's creative? Because you're made in the image of God too. And instead of thinking your way is not as good as my way, but what have you learned? Like, what are you doing? I can copy you.
But that's just it. I think if we can recognize the creativity in worship, that's
Hmm.
that's a beautiful thing to add to our families, to our classrooms. And
Yes.
here it's also saying we're not saying copy customs that are unchristian, right? Or
Of
anti.
course, no. This was
But
Jesus is the light of the world and lighting a candle
yeah.
in the
So,
darkness.
and that's, I think, I, I mean, I think people can walk into some of these customs being worried that now we're going to celebrate somebody else's religion or a worship of other gods or something like that. And we're not saying
Right.
use discernment, obviously.
That's not
But
what I'm saying. Correct. That's right.
but when you find how other people are worshiping God, goodness, why would we not want to include that? I mean,
It's
not everybody
beautiful.
needs to worship God the way I worship God. I connect deeply with God through music. Not everybody does. Some people
Well,
connect deeply with God through art or through words or dance. And I think that we've got to recognize that and see that there's other ways.
when I think sometimes God will teach you something unexpected. My
Mhm.
son went on a mission trip to Papua New Guinea and he sent back, they were having this big celebration at church. And a part of their celebration was cutting palm branches and
Mhm.
waving them in the air.
Yeah.
Well, this is not something you would, of course, normally see here in America. But I was so struck by that image because he sent like a little video of it, of like, that's what they were doing when Jesus came
Yeah.
on Palm Sunday. In
Yeah.
that culture, they celebrated by waving palm branches. And they're
Love-
still doing that today in Papua New Guinea. And so it really awakened in me this new understanding of what was going on in the Bible is like, this was probably just a very cultural way to celebrate. It wasn't
Yeah.
just so obscure, like, oh, well, let's go just today to get a palm, like it
Yeah.
was a celebration thing they probably did in their culture and is something that's still happening. And I just thought, wow, that's such a neat tie in to the scripture. It helped me understand, like, kind of imagine what was going on Palm Sunday when Jesus came in because I could see this video of these people
Yeah.
waving their palm branches. And it was funny. He said, the more the night went on, the bigger the branches got. Like everybody showed up with just like this little
Oh,
branch, and then they would go get bigger ones and bigger ones. sort of
But I think
showed.
to see that as really a part of the culture rather than our little, Palm Sunday where we're cutting a little piece of green paper and handing it
Right.
to our kids to wave around for a little bit. Like this is a true festival in,
And it was a true way of showing they were worshiping God. I mean,
yeah,
it was a devotion thing for them.
I love it.
And in Jesus, not,
Yeah,
it was definitely a Christian event,
yeah,
but it was just something we wouldn't see here. And I just thought,
right.
wow, what a cool, I understand something about the Bible I didn't understand before seeing this,
Oh,
So we're going to learn more by opening ourselves to seeing what other Christians do.
yeah. Okay, so as we wrap up today, I always love to ask. Our podcast is called Reimagine Childhood, and I would love for you to think for just a second if there was something
Okay.
that you could reimagine about how we approach early childhood, young children in general, what would that be?
I would like to reimagine a world where preschool teachers see themselves as people doing kingdom work, as missionaries, even serving little tiny bearers of human souls who are made in the image of God, but a very sacred calling. I think every ordinary moment, tying shoes or reading a story, even resolving conflict, would be an opportunity to reflect the love of God, of the one who made that little person who you're serving. And just, I think if people could go into their jobs with that mentality, that it might bring a lot of joy.
That's beautiful. I do think that's true. I think if we approached every day in our classrooms as with that mindset of kingdom work, that we are stewarding little image bearers of God
Hmm.
into their own unique callings of who God has created them to be, that there would,
Yeah.
I wonder if we wouldn't feel less stressed and more joy in our work.
I hope so. I hope so.
Oh, Tara, this has been a joy to chat.
Oh, thank you. Me too. It's fun. I started going down memory lane.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of how God has created us too, right? Is that we are growing in our journey with Him, in our awareness of how He's created people and how He's created us and what He's created for us to do.
Hmm.
And so I even love that you started out with the masterpiece. I'm God's masterpiece, which is, I mean,
Hmm.
it's Ephesians 2:10 is we
Yeah,
are created as God's handiwork with He's created us with good works to do. And
that's
He's
it.
decided in advance what those good works are. And I'm grateful that one of your good works is to reimagine a song that many of us grew up with and to
Thank you.
recreate it in a way that brings new life for a lot of us into and just an awareness of hey, maybe we've missed some things. And sometimes God allows us an opportunity to redo.
Mm, always. Thank you so much.
All of us are purposefully made, personally known, and perfectly loved. Let me say that one more time. It just struck me when she said it earlier in this conversation. All of us are purposefully made, personally known, and perfectly loved. How often do I get frustrated with people or judge people's actions and motives too quickly? Especially when I don't have experience in their context or their culture. It's honestly a lot more often than I'd like to admit. But Tara so beautifully shared that God is a creative God. He could have made us all the same, but he chose not to because each one of us gives him glory in a unique way. Ephesians 2:10 says that we are God's handiwork. His masterpiece is what some versions say, created in Christ Jesus to do good works that were prepared in advance for us to do. The work you're doing right now, God prepared it specifically for you to do now. The other thing that really stuck with me after our conversation is the reference she made to Psalm 139 about God knitting us and all the children and families in our care together in our mother's womb. It says he knit us together in our mother's womb. In another place, it says he knit us together in the secret place. Y'all, knitting, I don't know if you know this, knitting is intricate work. You don't just throw something together and boom, there it is. It requires forethought, planning, and then it requires intricate coordination and time. That's how God designed you. With the details of your appearance, your mannerisms, your passions, even your physical boundaries where you live and work. God planned it out carefully just for you, the good and the hard, because that's how you're going to bring him the most glory. That's how people are going to come to know him, through your life and your story. Do you see yourself as an image bearer of God? How does that impact how you show up for work every day or just for life? You are literally carrying the image of God with you wherever you go. So are the littles in your classroom. I challenge you to ask yourself this question: how are the little children in my classroom showing me the image, the beauty and goodness of God? I bet you'll see it if you pause to look. Every time you bend down with patience, with love, with joy, with grace to connect with a child, you're showing them the goodness of God within you. He planned this work in advance for you to do. Isn't that awesome? Thanks for spending time with us today on Reimagine Childhood. We hope you walk away with a fresh idea, a little encouragement, and a big reminder that your work with young children truly changes lives. If this episode was helpful, would you take a moment to subscribe, rate the show in whichever app you listen, and then share this episode with someone who might benefit? Your engagement helps us reach more teachers and caregivers who are shaping the next generation for Jesus. Stay connected with us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, and our website at early.com. Until next time, keep nurturing wonder, faith, and joy in the children God has placed in your care.